Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgins speaks out as the city is preparing to celebrate its annual summer festival, Whoop Up Days. Alberta government officials discuss the housing plan for residents impacted by the devastating Jasper wildfires, which scorched 30% of the town. And Hamas has said no to another potential ceasefire with Israel. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will explain.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Well, Lethbridge is getting up and getting ready to host its annual summer festival Whoop Up Days beginning on Tuesday. Now, the city's Mayor Blaine Higgins took some time out at City Hall to talk about the festivities and features that this week will offer.
The parade starts tomorrow, and it's going to be great. The weather is going to be much better than it was last year. Mother Nature was a little tough with us, we'll say, last year. A lot of rain, but it's going to be warm. Make sure you bring your sunscreen and prepare for a great, it's going to be a wonderful parade, followed by, I'm hoping everybody comes down to City Hall here. We've got Trevor Panzak is going to be singing, sponsored by visitlethbridge.com, just to have everyone together to take that time to enjoy each other's company. I mean, we all get so busy, especially during the summertime. There's holidays and everybody's gone, and then you're going to be, well, I hate to say it, but you're going to be that flaky snow stuff's going to be coming fairly soon too. So just the opportunity of everyone to get out and about and enjoy everything that Lethbridge has to offer, and get over there to the exhibition, because it's going to be some great times over there.
And the parade will commence Tuesday morning beginning at 9 a.m. at Park Place Mall and travel down 3rd Avenue before also heading north on 13th Street on the way to Galbraith School. Make sure you watch for BCN on the parade. And the gates of the Lethbridge and District Exhibition Grounds will open to the public at 12 noon. You know, more than 90 floats are expected to be on display at Tuesday's Whoop Up Days parade. Leading the parade as marshal is Southern Alberta's very own Dwayne Kessler. He's a third-generation rodeo stock contractor who's raised some of the greatest bucking stock in Canadian rodeo history from his ranch near Raymond. Now, this year's theme is Grow Up Western, which echoes the 2024 Whoop Up Days theme song, which is written and performed by local artist Cody Hall. According to Paul Kingsmith with the Lethbridge and District Exhibition, the theme song, and parade marshal choices was a serendipitous moment for the planning team.
The theme came first, but it actually was one of those kind of serendipitous moments where we had been talking to Cody Hall about potentially doing a theme song this year, and he told us that he had a song that he thought would fit perfectly with the spirit of what we do, because his song is really about how you don't have to be a cowboy to live Western culture, that by being here, you're influenced by the world around you. And we loved it. We heard the song. We thought it was fantastic. And we'd already been kicking around names for parade marshal and sort of had Dwayne in mind, and we're like, that fits in perfectly there too. So the world just kind of came together, and all the stars aligned, and we're just so happy that it did.
Now, many planning to attend the festivities are upset that the Midway operator, West Coast Amusements, is going cashless this year. Kingsmith addressed those concerns at Monday morning's press conference and clarified that cash is still king.
You can still bring cash and you can still buy concessions and games, but it's all through digital kiosks. So cash is still accepted across the West Coast Amusements Midway. You go to your digital kiosk, you'll get a bracelet printed out. It's easy to reload, and it's good for the rides and the games and the concession stand. So it's actually a really modern system, one of the best at any fair across North America.
Last year's Whoop Up Day attendance broke a modern-day record for the city at over 77,000. That was partly due to the fact that it was free admission sponsored by Gas King. Fewer crowds are anticipated this year because of the paid admission. Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas is also gearing up for the Whoop Up Days as she hosted a pancake breakfast in Lethbridge on Monday morning. Now, as you've heard on BCN, Thomas has been very critical of the CBC paying staff over $18 million in bonuses, taxpayer money, primarily to managers and executives. This despite the fact that hundreds of journalists have been laid off at the public broadcaster. Thomas spoke with BCN at her pre-Whoop Up Days pancake breakfast and said it was wrong for CBC to give up bonuses despite failing to meet viewership targets.
Catherine Tate has been the executive of the CBC since about 2018, and in that time, viewership has come down by 50% or more. She's cut hundreds of jobs. Trust is abysmal. And at the end of the day, they've failed to meet about 80% of their own goals. And yet, for Catherine Tate to give herself a bonus and her executives a bonus to the tune of $18 million is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I think Canadian taxpayers deserve a whole lot better.
Up to $3.3 million were paid to 45 executives, which averages around $73,000 per executive. You know, that's more than the average median family income after taxes back in 2022. Residents of Jasper are returning home after a massive wildfire forced them from their homes about 3 weeks ago. The fires destroyed more than 300 buildings, which equated to around 800 housing units. The question now is, where will some of the people live as the Rocky Mountain resort town begins to rebuild? Alberta Municipal Affairs Minister Rick McIver is urging locals to fill out a survey to see if there is any extra space available in homes that are still standing. McIver says housing options will depend on the size of the household, insurance coverage, and ownership status.
The town is forever changed, and it will take time to restore, but we are ready to begin the process of reentry. Changes to fire activity or unplanned changes to critical services could still create some problems as folks return to Jasper. So please keep in mind that the situation remains somewhat dynamic. We're happy to have residents head home to Jasper, but since things could change, please remain vigilant, follow the instructions of local authorities, and prepare to remain patient during these early days of reentry. While some services have been restored in the community due to some very hard work by a lot of people, residents should be prepared to be as self-sufficient as possible. Our joint task force with the municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada are actually looking at 3 different forms of housing, immediate housing from 0 to 90 days to get people situated kind of midterm for that 90 days to 6 months and beyond. And then beyond that, we're looking to see what the options are for people for permanent housing.
Yeah, the fires destroyed around 30% of all structures in the town of Jasper. The mayor of Hinton, Alberta, says his community will do all it can to support its municipal neighbor, Jasper. That includes supporting evacuees and those still fighting the out-of-control wildfire. Nicholas Nissen says the wildfire, which prevented many visitors from accessing the park, has made things quite difficult for business owners. He says this has been a very scary time for so many in his region.
We had the most apocalyptic smoke cloud coming up over the mountains, and it was coming up a little bit south of town, and a lot of people were asking, where's that smoke coming from? Oh, that's Jasper. It looked very scary. It was we had ash rain down on us. It was the street lights in town came on at about 4:30 in the afternoon, and this is in July. The sun doesn't set till almost midnight. So it is definitely going to have a large effect on the face of our community with giving people the ability to go back into the town. I imagine for a lot of folks, that's going to be the first time they're going to have truly actionable information about what their situation is. And then people are going to start making decisions for themselves. And we're just standing by, waiting on the Red Cross, the province, the town of Jasper, everyone that's collecting that information to tell us what they're going to need from the town of Hinton. And those conversations have started. They started day one. We're not the ones in need of support. We've been the ones giving the support. So from a perspective of we've been working with the province, it's really we've been working with the province to give them the support that they need.
And it's so good to know that after several weeks of wildfires in Jasper, so many were forced to abandon, leave their homes, or finally allowed to return home. But to do so, fire departments from across the province joined forces to win the battle against the fires in the region. Such is the case of the Sterling Fire Department. They joined other firefighters. Mark Berkey, chief with the Sterling Fire Department here in southern Alberta, explains his experience from the moment of being called July 24th until his return 7 days after the fire.
I'm committed here in Sterling to support the province, so Alberta Emergency Management. So when the call comes in, I do expect that our guys are fully trained, that our equipment is ready to go, and that we're ready to answer that call within the hour. Alberta Emergency Management calls us. After that, they deploy us, give us an assignment.
Fairly chaotic to start off. You get into the fire hall, so we were looking through the unburnt parts of town for any burning embers, anything on fire, essentially making sure the fire didn't reach any further into the town than it already was. I have 3 young children, so I've seen quite a bit of kids' toys and some parts of burnt books and whatnot, like kids' books from houses. So that was probably the saddest part, I'd say, out of it, for me anyways.
You know, fortunately, not a lot of wildfire haze here in our region in southwestern Alberta today. Jeanette Roche is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, hopefully the good air quality will continue as we kick off the Whoop Up Days parade here in Lethbridge Tuesday morning beginning at 9.
Yeah, true. Well, we are seeing a 3 on the air quality index for Tuesday. We were at 2 today, moving up to 3 this evening, and then into Tuesday as well, a 3, which is still low. Now, we are going to be seeing some warm conditions as well on Tuesday, high of 29 degrees, mainly cloudy skies. We're going to be seeing some gusty winds as well. We're seeing 30 winds from the southwest, gusting up to 50 kilometers per hour. So keep that in mind if you're going to be out there on that parade route. Maybe if you've got any loose objects, hang on to them. Those light chairs, maybe stay seated in them. We don't want them blowing off into the parade route there. I'll be back later in the show to give you the national forecasts. Hal?
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. A motorcycle rider died following a crash this past weekend on Calgary's Deerfoot Trail. Police say the driver in an SUV hit the brakes on Saturday due to traffic that was slowing ahead of her. Now, the rider of the bike, a woman in her late 50s, struck the vehicle, was thrown from her bike, and then was hit by another vehicle. She suffered serious injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. Alberta's police watchdog has been called in to investigate a police shooting at a shopping centre in northwest Calgary. Police say they received a call about an attempted liquor store robbery on Sunday afternoon. They say the suspect did not comply with the demands to drop his weapon, and one officer's gun was fired. The man was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and no one else was injured. Alberta RCMP are now offering a $2,000 cash reward to try and locate a suspect that was involved in a shooting that left one person dead and another injured near Strathmore on August the 6th. Police are looking for 28-year-old Elijah Blake Strawberry. 35-year-old Wayne Penner from Edmonton was already arrested and charged with murder and attempted murder. Rocky View County employee Colin Huff was shot and killed on a rural road north of Chestermere, while a Fortis Alberta employee also sustained minor wounds in the attack. It appears as though Hamas has said no to a ceasefire with the Israel Defense Forces. The terrorist group is demanding that the IDF evacuate 2 strategic areas in Gaza. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says it shouldn't come as a surprise that a deal with Hamas fell through yet again.
Yet another rejection by Hamas. You would think a group that screams ceasefire, ceasefire, or genocide would want an end to this war, would want to protect its people, would want a natural, ending to all of this so that the people, the death toll can stop. But yet again, they either don't come to the negotiating table, or when they do, they reject any offers that are pretty decent. And a lot of the Arab countries that are involved, Egypt, Qatar, have said that these are good deals, that they should take it.
Foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will also discuss how Kamala Harris's running mate Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, awarded more than $2 million to a Muslim group that fundraises for an Al-Qaeda-linked charity. She'll have details coming up after business news. Catastrophes, wars, and natural disasters have always been around. Now, during those moments, it's very important to know who's there to help. The caring hands are the humanitarian workers who wait for the emergency calls and head out at a moment's notice to help out those in need. BCN's Heidi Echevarria has more now on this World Humanitarian Day.
Today is World Humanitarian Day, a day to remember that in addition to defending the survival, well-being, and dignity of people affected by crisis, we must also defend the safety and protection of humanitarian workers. They give their all to protect civilians during wars, accidents, and natural disaster. Here in Canada, specifically in southern Alberta, Jack Avan, Emergency Manager Coordinator with the Red Cross, explains what kind of help the institution offers in the region.
We provide assistance to impacted people. Regardless of the size of the disaster, we are there as a resource, for those who are impacted. And just for example, small scale can be anywhere, a small house fire where one family is impacted and looking for emergency needs such as temporary accommodation, food, clothing, those kind of services. So we are, no matter where they are, in Calgary, in remote areas, anywhere in Canada, we mobilize resources to make sure that they have the much needed help. And on the large scale, such as catastrophic disasters, we collaborate with the government, with the impacted communities, to make sure those who are evacuated, they receive assistance. And I feel blessed, to be in a capacity, in a position to help others. And I can also echo, many volunteers who selflessly give their time and commitment to Red Cross, in order to help those who are impacted, to our fundamental principles of Canadian Red Cross, and we always serve neutral.
According to United Nations, a bomb attack in Iraq on August 19, 2003 claimed the life of 22 humanitarian workers. 5 years later, in 2008, United Nations adopted a resolution designating August 19 as a World Humanitarian Day. For Bridge City News, and Heidi Echavarria.
Some very sad news in the world of entertainment today. Former U.S. talk show host Phil Donahue has passed away. His family said he died following a lengthy illness. Donahue hosted over 6,000 episodes of his talk show that covered everything from alcoholism to abortion. He was seen as a pioneer of the audience participation format. The Phil Donahue Show began way back in 1967 and entered into national syndication in 1970 before being retitled Donahue in 1974. The final show aired in 1996. Phil Donahue was 88 years old. It was another beautiful hot summer day here in Lethbridge. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, the balmy weather will continue as we kick off WHOOP updates this week, and a note for our viewers to keep an eye out for BCN in the parade Tuesday morning beginning at 9 a.m.
Yeah, that's right. I will be driving that station vehicle, so maybe go ahead and give me a wave if you see me. I'd love to say hi. Should be a decent day for it as well. Seeing mainly cloudy conditions tomorrow, 29 degrees for a high. Could see a bit windy as conditions as well, so 30 to 50 kilometer per hour winds from the southwest. Maybe a little bit of haze as well. As we get into Wednesday and Thursday, mainly sunny skies there. 26 for the high on Wednesday, 25 Thursday, all the way up to 31 degrees on a Friday, and then 26 for Wednesday and Thursday with a mix of sun and clouds. So definitely keeping above that average high for this time of year, which is 25 now. Average low, 10 degrees, 33. That was our high temperature, which happened back in 1942. And back in 1950, we saw the coldest on record for this day, which was only 1 degree. Very chilly for August. Okay, 6:29, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 8:40 p.m., giving us 14 hours, 14 minutes. 14 hours, 11 minutes, that is, 11 minutes of daylight. On the west coast tomorrow, seeing rainy conditions in both Victoria and Vancouver. 19 for the high in Victoria, 21 in Vancouver. Both those cities could see risk of thunderstorms as well. 25 for the high expected tomorrow in Edmonton. Could see a 30% chance of showers, risk of thunderstorms. Clearing in the afternoon, then could see some haze as well. Mainly clear skies, though, in Calgary tomorrow. A bit of haze as well with a high of 25 degrees. As we look over to the rest of the prairies here, getting into Saskatchewan, high of 29 degrees in Saskatoon. Could see 30% chance of showers, risk of thunderstorms. Clear skies in Regina, high of 31. 29 degrees expected to be the high tomorrow. And there in Winnipeg with a mix of sun and cloud. As we look into the central part of the country, 20 only for the high there in Toronto, mix of sun and cloud. 18 expected in Ottawa, could see some showers. Showers expected tomorrow as well in Montreal. 18 for both of those cities. Now, as we get into Atlantic Canada, we are seeing more rainfall. 5 to 10 millimeters of rain expected in Fredericton. 21 for the high. Halifax and Charlottetown both seeing 60% chance of showers. 22 the expected high in Halifax. Could see thunderstorms there. 26 the expected high in Charlottetown tomorrow. Now, under a rainfall warning is St. John's. 25 degrees is the temperature tomorrow, but tonight could see 30 to 40 millimeters of rain as Hurricane Ernesto has now made its way into offshore Canadian waters. So what that's going to do is create a lot of rainfall tomorrow. By the morning, though, those should actually clear up. And then what we could see is see some large waves, especially in the coast of Nova Scotia there and the very southeastern portion of Newfoundland and Labrador. And tomorrow also some 60K winds and then dying down in the afternoon to 40 kilometers per hour. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Small business owners who rely on rail services could be negatively impacted by potential work stoppage at Canada's major railways later this week. Canadian Pacific Kansas City Limited and Canadian National Railway Company say if they're unable to reach deals with workers represented by the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference, a potential work stoppage could happen on Thursday. The union issued a 72-hour strike notice to CKPC, while CN says it intends to lock out workers if a deal is not reached by Thursday at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. And with a potential work stoppage looming, this would mean the immediate stoppage of shipment of services and resources, including oil and gas and agriculture. David Bishop, a director from Alberta Grains, spoke with BCN on how the potential strike will be detrimental to the movement of agricultural products such as grain, and the challenges it would mean for farmers and other industries across the country.
We're not going to move very much product at all because 94% of what we grow gets moved by rail. So most everything will just be at a standstill when the strike happens. So that's very disconcerting and disappointing as a producer because I rely on the railways to move my product so I can get paid, so I can pay the fertilizer company or the ag retailer or anything because we can't move our product. We don't get paid and we can't pay our bills or anything else. So it's can have a major effect, pretty drastic with farmers. So, and it's not just farmers; it affects all the industries across all of Canada. So, and this is kind of unprecedented because of the fact both railways are going out on strike at the same time. That's a first.
Bishop, who's also a grain farmer out by Barons, Alberta, also touched on the implications of international trade and how customers will find other means of finding grain if Canada is not able to figure out how to handle work stoppages. General Motors says it's laying off a small percentage of Canadian workers amid software job cuts. The automaker says over 1,000 salaried employees worldwide are being laid off, affecting its software and services units. GM wouldn't specify the number of Canadian workers cut in its Canadian Technical Centre. The company says it is prioritizing investments that will have the greatest impact. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 61 points on the day to finish at 23,116. The Dow was up 236 points to 40,896. The S&P 500 was up 54 on the day to 5608, and the Nasdaq was up 245 points to 17,876. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 222 to 74.43 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 12 cents to $2.25 US. Gold was down $3.79 on the day to $25.0403 US an ounce. And silver was up 42 cents to $29.45 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.43 per bushel. Barley's at $5.53. Canola's at $12.97. And corn is at $7.24 per bushel. Live cattle were unchanged at $182.80. Feeder cattle were down 40 cents to $242.38, and lean hogs were up 90 cents to $87.33. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.30 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Whoop Up Days is about to begin here in Lethbridge. The Western-themed event will run Tuesday through Saturday at the Lethbridge and District Exhibition Grounds. There will be free gate admission for all attendees from noon till 3 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And be sure to watch for Bridge City News taking part in the parade, which kicks off the event Tuesday morning from 9 till 11 a.m. The terrorist group Hamas has said no to a ceasefire with the Israel Defense Forces. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari discusses what that will mean next for the war in Gaza. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. Hamas has rejected the latest ceasefire proposal as the terrorist group is demanding that the Israel Defense Forces evacuate 2 strategic areas in Gaza. Now, to chat about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from the Foreign Desk in Los Angeles. Lisa, will we see a ceasefire anytime soon between Hamas and Israel?
Doesn't look like it, right, Hal? Yet another rejection by Hamas. You would think a group that screams ceasefire, ceasefire, or genocide would want an end to this war, would want to protect its people, would want a natural, ending to all of this, so that the people, the death toll can stop. But yet again, they either don't come to the negotiating table, or when they do, they reject any offers that are pretty decent. And a lot of the Arab countries that are involved, Egypt, Qatar, have said that these are good deals, that they should take it. Of course, Antony Blinken has gone to the region and is involved yet again. Something the United States is very keen on getting is some sort of deal before election time here in the United States. I think it's very important for them not to be involved in this craziness while we go into elections in November. But it looks like the terror group from Hamas is not complying, and here we are.
So how can Israel be assured that any of the hostages are still alive, Lisa?
Right, and that's really the sad part about all this. You notice how, the terror group Hamas, I mean, they are the formal leadership of the Palestinian people in Gaza, and yet when you ask them, how much aid do you have? They don't have a number. You ask them, how many hostages are left? Where are they? What are the details? They don't have them. But as soon as there's some sort of attack, they have the exact number in terms of death toll, and that goes around the mainstream media, and all the legacy media is covering that and quoting those numbers. It's really a horrific situation. Obviously, I can't really state that enough. But it's also interesting how the information war has taken off, and how Hamas has been truly masterful at launching that propaganda war around the world to really contribute to this rise of anti-Semitism, in violent crimes against the Jewish community and those who support them. And I know that a lot of churches are concerned about safety and security right now as well. How can Israel be sure that this will even stop once they do reach a ceasefire deal? That's really the question, and I think it brings us back to the two priorities that Israel had from the get-go. After October 7th happened, October 8th, Israel was very clear about two initiatives. One, to bring the hostages back. Unfortunately, many of them have perished, and to your point, who knows how many more have died in captivity. And number two, to decimate Hamas. And what does that really mean? That means to take the existential threat that is surrounds Israel off the table to the best of their ability. So.
Now, speaking of which, the Times of Israel is reporting that 2 senior Hamas terrorists were killed in an Israeli drone strike in the West Bank over the weekend, Lisa. The IDF says that a pair of Hamas operatives were involved in planning a shooting attack in the Jordan Valley last week, in which 23-year-old Yonatan Deutsch was killed and another civilian was seriously wounded.
Right. If you look at the IDF's tactics here, it's been very targeted, extremely tactical, trying to pinpoint the leaders and the masterminds of these terror plots. The biggest one was, Haniyeh, who was assassinated on Iranian soil just a couple of weeks ago. It's very, very interesting how well the Israeli intelligence apparatus has worked in really getting the location of these individuals, making these attacks pinpointed so that others are not injured or in harm's way, and going after them. But it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. It's unbelievable in that part of the world how many people are volunteering to blow themselves up in the name of jihad. And that is really when we get to the root of the issue, is that the brainwashing, the education. And when you look at a UN organization like UNRWA, which is the UN, the United Nations organization that was entrusted with only taking care of the Palestinian people, it gets US taxpayer money, Canadian taxpayer money, to truly dedicate itself to ground up education, young people. But instead, they were using that money to incorporate themselves into this jihad, teaching children, exactly that, to kill Jews and to launch jihad against the infidel. And, and many of them, as you know, Hal, were actually involved. There's evidence to show that they were actually involved in the October 7th attacks. So I think we have to get back to the drawing board with regards to education, with regards to how to fix this issue at its root, and not just try to play whack-a-mole with these horrific terrorists who are the masterminds behind all of these plots.
Lisa, as the Democratic National Convention kicks off this week, Vice President Harris is expected to accept the nomination to become her party's nominee heading into the November election. And it looks like it might be a fairly tight race between Harris and Donald Trump.
Depends who you ask, right? A lot of polls have Kamala Harris ahead of Trump, and some polls are showing that Trump is really neck and neck, and it will be a very close race. It's very hard to tell because the media is very biased in this situation, and there have been articles showing how reports rather showing that the Harris campaign has had a hand in scrubbing the internet, really influencing headlines. Really creating a candidate that is very different than the one who has been vice president for the last 3 years. So, in some sense, I think, Americans have a huge disadvantage here in terms of getting educated on the candidates, really understanding what it is, because there's a lot of noise around this election. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think this election, just like the last one, will be a vote for President Trump or a vote against President Trump, because Kamala Harris has proven her record in the last 3 years or more. And while she was involved in the political world here in California, very radical. She would actually boast about how radical she is and was and continues to be, and her VP pick along the same veins. It will take the Democrat Party and the country further and further and further to the left. And that really is the choice that Americans have to make. It's not just about policies, but really about ideology, because that's how different their policies are. So I think it's going to be a very different America come January 2025, depending on who wins office.
And there's some news surfacing regarding Harris's running mate, Tim Walz from Minnesota. The report says that Minnesota awarded more than $2 million to a Muslim group that fundraises for an al-Qaeda-linked charity. Lisa, this allegedly took place under the tenure of Minnesota Governor, and like I said, Harris's running mate, Tim Walz.
Yeah, a lot of radical elements coming out. As he was also at the helm in Minnesota, where there was BLM protests, where there was millions and millions, if not more, in damage with the looting. And both him and Kamala were very vocal in supporting the protesters, the looters, the rioters. With people who have small businesses, people who endured that damage and really had to live through that, they remember these things. And now you have his connection to these fringe organizations that are tied to Al-Qaeda. We know that both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to really distance themselves from the pro-Israel camp. They're trying to get Michigan, which is really a swing state, and hoping that the pro-Palestinian population there will give them a vote. The pro-Palestinian population is really dismayed with both sides. They don't feel like either side has truly given them the full support that they want. And for that reason, we're seeing protesters outside the DNC, and we will see them all week. That's something that was planned from a while back. So we shall see. How the only thing that we're guaranteed is a lot of entertainment news between now and the election. I think there will be a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds, absolutely. A dual U.S.-Russian citizen was sentenced to 12 years in prison after pleading guilty to treason-related charges. Now, all Ksenia Kava actually did was make a simple $52 donation to Ukraine, Lisa. And the trial allegedly took place at the same court that convicted Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich of espionage back in July.
Right. And the main point here, besides for the $52, which I think is mind-boggling, but the main point here is that this is happening after the prisoner exchange took place, where Russia is basically taking a position to say, we don't care. We're going to do this over and over again. And really, it's a kangaroo court making an example out of this woman for giving money or lending support to, which is the bigger idea, to Ukraine. And obviously, that's punishable in Russia, whether you write about it, whether you post it on social media. As we know, journalists have been prosecuted for writing anything that is more flattering for Ukraine and against Russia, opposition members, etc. So really trying to make a symbol out of this case. But again, shows us that you don't negotiate with rogue elements. You don't negotiate or do prisoner swaps like this. As happy as we are that those American hostages are home, they should have never been in that situation to begin with.
Physicians in India have gone on strike following the alleged rape and murder of a female colleague. Lisa, the demonstration came following the death of 31-year-old second-year trainee Dr. Momita Debnath, who was found dead at a seminar hall where she'd gone to rest following the end of her shift.
Yes, and it's really the footage. I have it actually on social media of all these women out on the streets protesting. And the beautiful thing is that they're not just really protesting in memory of this beautiful medical student, but really taking and borrowing the slogan from the Iran women's led movement, which is women, life, freedom. And, it just shows that solidarity in that part of the world to give women a voice and to give them, the freedoms that they deserve, including, life and education and truly to lead the lives that they want. What's upsetting is that this is not getting more support around the world. I actually posted on my social media that people who are supporting Hamas and Hezbollah should really adopt a better cause to support, like the women of Iran, like the women in India, and in particular this case where this medical student lost her life.
Let's talk about some of the suppression we're seeing when it comes to women's rights in many countries around the world, including Iran and Afghanistan. I mean, in Afghanistan, when the Taliban took over, it's all of a sudden women are no longer allowed to go to university.
Right, absolutely. Who can believe we're 3 years post the American withdrawal from Afghanistan? When you look at what we were promised, of course, America couldn't stay there forever. And, the United States was there for 20 years. We lost a lot of blood, treasure. So much money was spent on that war. Obviously senseless deaths, including the 13 who died in the really careless withdrawal from Afghanistan. But we left so much military equipment there. And we were promised that this Taliban would not be the Taliban of the 90s, that they would be the new and improved. But how could that be when we're dealing with a terror organization? Not only are they not the new and improved, they're actually more radical than they ever have been. And now we are forced to normalize relations with Afghanistan and treat them as a real political power. This is the same thing that the United States did in 1979 with the mullahs that came into Iran. And then we see it again with Hamas. And now we're doing it again with the Taliban. It's really the normalization of political Islam, which always just leads us to radical Islam. The women, as you correctly said, Hal, are the ones who are really suffering. Imagine, going to university and going beyond that and getting your doctoral degree, but not being able to leave your home, not being able to go to a doctor's appointment without a male chaperone. It's truly backwards. And again, this subject, like many other human rights and really freedom of religion topics that really deserve a higher profile here in the West.
Lisa, a new report by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency says illegal border crossings were actually down by 34% from June to July. The drop is due to a presidential proclamation issued back in June. But the total number of illegals, however, has reached 12.5 million people, a staggering number.
Staggering number that is evident in our large cities here in the United States, many of whom are really very much trying to take away their sanctuary city statuses and really backtrack on these very lax migrant policies that have led to, a rise in homelessness, violent crime, drug use, migrants lined up on street corners, rape, so many other things, and it really, underscores the problem that we have with illegal migration here in this country. I know that we also have it coming in from the north with, the border that we share with you guys up in Canada. This is an issue that has to be tackled. And as we all know, Kamala Harris's borders are, this is her policy, and she should stand behind it because it's something that she, supported and really didn't get in front of, so therefore supported for over 3 years. And this is why we are at where we're at. The resources aren't enough. This is not a humanitarian issue. I mean, forget the fact that up to 1,000 or more have been identified as terrorists or wannabe terrorists, who are either on the FBI list or on the FTO list, which is the foreign terror list. And we're not even talking about the gotaways, the people who have not been detected, who have gone under the radar. Even if they are well-intentioned, if they're not coming over in a legal way, they're being taken advantage of. The coyotes are taking advantage of them. They're getting sick. They're drowning. They're getting raped. They're getting, robbed. It's not a humanitarian way. It's not the American or the Canadian way. And we really hope to see some reform on this issue very soon. I think those numbers speak to the fact that reform is needed.
American correspondent and foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari from the Foreign Desk, thanks so much for joining us today from beautiful Los Angeles.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We read in Scripture that God is building his church, and there is no end in sight to the increase in his government. So that means that we should be seeing an overall increase in the number of Christians around the world, right? What is God doing in different parts of the world? Joining us today to chit-chat a bit about it from Medicine Hat is Pastor Mark Burrows. He's the lead pastor at River Valley Community Church in the Hat, in the Gas City, and the Director of International Operations and Partner Development with World Compassion. Pastor Mark, welcome to Bridge City News.
Hal, thank you so much. Great to be with you. Great to be with the viewers. Excited to share what God's doing around the world.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. How would you best describe your group, World Compassion?
Hal, I'll just do a very brief little bit of history. World Compassion was started almost 55 years ago by Dr. Terry Law. A little bit of history. His father, pastor here in Medicine Hat, and Terry was a young man, went through his rebellious years, but God got a hold of him and a call on his life. And he ended up going to Oral Roberts University, and a prophetic word over his life many years ago when he was at a teen camp, British Columbia, was that God was going to take him to nations that were hostile to the gospel. He rebelled against that. But as I said, God got a hold of him, and Oral Roberts University and Terry Law Ministries was started. And God took him around the world into closed nations, protected him. And 55 years later, we are World Compassion. Terry's with the Lord now. His son, Jason Law, is the president. And we keep moving forward to the glory of God.
Let's talk about some of the nations you're currently working in.
Would love to do that. Currently, we're working in Iran. We've worked in China for over 30 years now. We work in Myanmar, another country in Asia. We work in Cuba, and we work in Iraq. We were one of the first humanitarian Christian organizations to get into Iraq right after the war back in 2004. So those are the 5 nations we work in currently, and seeing many beautiful things of the Lord happen in those nations.
Oh, there must be a lot of challenges working specifically in the Muslim countries. Tell me about how the gospel of Christ is being spread in Iran. And does Iran allow Christian church gatherings right now?
Iran does not allow Christian church gatherings. It's even illegal to own a copy of the Bible, even a small New Testament. Under their law, they allow no such gatherings, no ownership of the Word of God, nothing. So none of that is allowed. And if caught, you are imprisoned, tried, and then whatever sentence they declare, that you have been an enemy of the state, actually.
Wow. So the church is basically underground in Iran? Is that how it works?
Churches underground in Iran, small house churches, and it is growing rapidly.
Wow. Is the Iranian government really clamping down? And which Christian activities is Iran targeting specifically?
Especially, yes, the Iranian government is very much clamping down, Hal, and especially any sort of gathering to worship God, they clamp down. They have, from what I understand, they have many, what we would call Secret Service agents. They're monitoring Christians, they're tracking Christians. So any kind of gathering, any kind of sharing your faith with someone, our believers that we're in contact with there, that we work with, tell us how careful they have to be. But they are so passionate about the love of God and the work of Jesus Christ being led by the Holy Spirit. And these people share the gospel, they distribute Bibles, but all of those activities are being monitored and watched and are illegal in the nation of Iran.
Wow. Pastor Mark, can you share some stories about God's intervention? I heard specifically about a number of your people that were put into prison, but then were miraculously released.
I sure will. Back Christmas of 2023, we had a number of our folk that we're in contact with that were just gathering for like a Christmas gathering. And there was, I think, around 25 or 30 of them. They were doing it secretly, of course, undercover, of which they thought. And the house where they were at was raided by over 30 agents. All of their devices, their computers, their laptops, their phones were seized and taken. And 4 of them were arrested and charged. They had been tracking these folks, and some of these folks were distributing Bibles, storing Bibles, and were part of the network that we work with. And they were imprisoned and, of course, interrogated and so on and so forth. They were released, awaiting trial. And miraculously, Hal, just a week ago, actually, we have been in contact with them, and miraculous decisions happened in the Iranian court by the judge. It does not look like any of them are going to have any more prison time. We're not sure what the penalty is going to be. From what we understand, it's going to be small. This seems incredibly miraculous. Seems to us like it is divine intervention of our God, and we're extremely grateful. We're still waiting on one court case. We just had a pastor at the end of April that was arrested. He has now been released, so he's awaiting his trial, and we're believing that we're gonna have favor also in that. But it is very, very can be very severe. But gospel's growing miraculously in Iran.
What about consular services from the Government of Canada? Have you received any help at all?
None whatsoever. We are working with a group that represents Iranians who have been arrested, a group out of Europe that is helping us at this point. And but no, we have not received any help from the Canadian government. We haven't reached out, if we're honest.
I guess it's more if Canadians are affected, or are in danger in that regard, as opposed to some of the local Iranian people. Now, you say that World Compassion tries to work as much as possible with the local churches in Iran. What does that relationship look like, and how do they really operate besides going underground?
World Compassion's heart is never to send missionaries. Our heart is always to come beside a local church pastor. So just to give you an example, let's say my church was in one of these hostile nations, or I was a pastor in one of these hostile nations. World Compassion would come alongside me and help equip me. They would help equip my leaders. They would give us resources. They would give us training, and they'd come alongside our vision of sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. So we're never a missionary sending organization. We just believe so strong in the local church. The local church in Iran is pastors who are pastoring small groups of people in a undisclosed location, be it a warehouse, be it an apartment, a house, and they would pastor 10 to 12 people. And we work with a network. I obviously, for protection's sake, I will not name that network, but we work with many, many pastors. And truthfully, I'm on every Thursday with many of those pastors, teaching the Word of God, training them, praying with them. And the local church is so far different from what we have here in the West, be it a building and all the programs and so on and so forth. They are a pastor pastoring 8 to 12 people. They look for a leader, they train that leader, and then they go start another local church, a small group of people to shepherd them.
So, Pastor Mark, to what degree are Iranians really turning to Jesus right now? What is really attracting them? Faith, hope, and love?
Oh, my. I'll just share some incredible stories. They read the Quran, and then they get a hold of a Bible. And they read the Quran, and they read the Word of God. And they devour the Word of God. and they come to the conclusion that the God of the Bible is not the God of Islam. He is a God of love. He's a God of hope. He's a God of mercy. And he has sent his son to save the world. And the church in Iran, Hal, is growing between 19 and 20% per year. The Iranian people en masse are turning away from Islam because of the current regime. And I want to make it really clear, it's really important to say this. We use the term Iran and is against Israel and against Christianity and against this and against this. It's not the Iranian people. It is the regime of Iran. The Iranian people are absolutely some of the most beautiful people you will ever meet in the world. They are heavily in scripture. They're the Elamites that were there on the day of Pentecost. They're in Jeremiah 49, where God says, I will restore the fortunes of Elam. And Cyrus, Isaiah 45, helped Israel rebuild the temple. There is something going on in this nation that is far greater than what we see in the news, Hal.
Now, World Compassion also works in Myanmar. You mentioned that earlier, Pastor Mark. Tell us a bit about that nation, how you go about reaching the people there.
Our ministry in Myanmar started back through a catastrophe, a natural catastrophe. I believe it was back in 2008, and it led World Compassion, because there's a compassion side to the ministry that we do, which is food and medicine and so on, which opens people's hearts, of course, to the gospel of Jesus, but started in 2008. I'm going to skip way forward now to 2021, when the military took the country back over. They took it away from a democratically elected government, and that country has been in war since 2021. That war is increasing. Militants have risen up, especially in the north of Myanmar, and the country is in much chaos. Inflation has ravaged it. Prices are out of control. And it's really a war that we don't hear much about. But in the midst of that, we are seeing people come to Christ. We use a Bible curriculum called ABC, which is virtually a Bible school that in book form and in an audio form, that we have a team right in that nation that is reaching out to local churches again. We have a small Bible school raising up local pastors, and we're seeing such a tremendous hunger in that nation for the Word of God.
Now, a little closer to home, you also work in the island nation of Cuba. This, of course, is a socialist state. So what kind of challenges are you seeing in that country?
Hal, I was in Cuba in September of 2023. The Cuban church is growing rapidly. The government does allow the church to have a church building, and it's interesting how they do it. Pastor will usually live on a piece of property in a home, and they get a permit to build onto that home, and they are allowed to gather their church on that property. We're not seeing a tremendous amount of pushback from the Cuban government there. And one of the organizations that we work with, back in the 90s, I believe they had about 8 church locations. Today they have over 500. The Cuban people are hungry, but Cuba is a nation, again, that is under great stress, economic stress. But right now, to be honest with you, a team from World Compassion with a local church out of the United States is there, and they're doing multiple ministry. I just connected with our team the other day. They had over 200 children come to a sports camp. The gospel was shared. Over 70% of those children have come to Christ. So we're connected. Again, this is all through a local church. So that local church now is going to follow up with those children and families. So as much as Cuba has this heavy-handed socialist government, the church is growing and prospering. You have to be wise. You have to be very careful. Be as wise as a serpent, innocent as a dove. But the church is growing now in Cuba.
So what can viewers really do, Pastor Mark, to really help you in your mission here? I'm guessing maybe financial support, also maybe financial support to buy Bibles for the underground church?
Oh, there's many ways. First of all, we cherish people's prayers. I've obviously been in some of these nations, and we need people to pray for us and for God to use us and to open the doors and for people's hearts to be open. And we're seeing that all over in the nations that we work with. There is a great move of God, I believe, all around the world. Secondly, of course, is finances. And for example, we raise, to place a Bible into the hands of an Iranian, we raise at $9. So if a person gave $20 a month, 2 people, 2 families are going to get a Bible. And that would be so powerful. So it's as simple as $20 a month. Helps us share the precious word of God in the nation of Iran. But there's many other things that you could be involved with for a small amount of money. And that would be very precious to us.
And for more information, where should people go?
I would send people to our website at www.worldcompassion.tv. www.worldcompassion.tv. And let me make a clarification. Sometimes Compassion Canada comes up. Compassion Canada is a wonderful Christian organization helping children, but we are World Compassion and we have a different mission. Grateful for Compassion Canada, but we're World Compassion. So if you do that, you should www.worldcompassion.tv. That'll take you right to our webpage, tell you our story, tell you what we're doing and how you can give. And we would be so blessed if people would do that.
And God bless you with that mission. Mark Burrows is the lead pastor at River Valley Community Church and the Director of International Operations and Partner Development with World Compassion. Pastor Mark, thanks so much for joining us today from Medicine Hat.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on. God bless you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.